Both Israelis and Palestinians are marking 6 months of war on Sunday. Our chief international correspondent, Lise Doucette, is monitoring events for us. She reports now from southern Israel.
Today, a memorial service is being held here. There's been a press conference where members, loved ones of those who lost their lives here are expressing not just pain but anger, asking why the Israeli security forces weren't here on this day to protect them, saying that they still feel abandoned. One of the people who did survive to tell the story was a photographer, Shai Klein Weinstein, who has now returned to the United States. But as the rockets started being fired by Hamas, he took out his camera and started filming. This is some of what he saw. And Shai Klein Weinstein joined us earlier from the U.S. city of Denver.
I was at my first music festival. I wasn't expecting it to end with us driving by gunmen and over corpses.
What was the moment when you realized it was no longer a music festival?
After the rockets began at 6:30 and they didn't stop, I started to get worried that it wasn't just rockets. And they went on for a while. You know, the rockets began at 6:30 and we actually physically got to our car at about 7:51 in the morning. So it's over an hour later and the rockets hadn't stopped. And at that point, I was growing increasingly more anxious and concerned about the situation.
Behind me, as I'm speaking to you, I'm at the site of the festival. There's now a sea of Israeli flags, of photographs of those who died here on that day. They may include some of your friends. Would you like to tell us about the people who were with you on that day who didn't escape?
So I was with a group of 8 of us total, myself, my cousin Mordecai, his now fiancée Tamara, and several mutual friends of ours, Yael, Eli, Barak, Doraz, and Almog. And I'm very grateful to say that they all escaped, but some of the people I made friends with at the festival, including Dor Avitan, who was my age at the time, 26, and Ron Schaefer, were murdered.
And you returned to the United States, and I understand that since then you have been trying to keep the memory of what happened on that day alive.
Yes, correct. Israel is still my permanent residence, although now I've been away from the country the exact same amount of time as I've lived there. I moved there last April. I've only been there till October. I've now been away since then. And I've been going to university campuses across the country. I've been to 157 different cities since November. Canada, the US, East Coast, West Coast, all of the above. Sharing my photos, my videos, my story, and just letting people know what happened to us and letting people know that even though this horrible, tragic thing that occurred to cause us terror isn't gonna keep us down.
And how do people react to you and the stories you tell?
I've had a mostly positive response. I've had a few instances where I've had protesters, but most of the time, very warm reception. Audiences from 5 to 500 people. I've even had people who are pro-Palestinian come see me speak. I've had Palestinian students come see me speak. I've had Black Israelites come see me speak. People who don't know anything about what's going on, who just want to hear more. And many people are sympathetic and interested in hearing what I have to say and having a very reasonable discussion.
And that was Shai Klein Weinstein, who was here during those horrific events of October the 7th. That day shook Israel to the core and shocked many around the world. Israel's staunchest allies, including the United States and Britain, immediately rushed in to show very public and powerful backing to Israel as it launched retaliatory strikes intended, said the Israeli army, to destroy Hamas. But 6 months on, as the death toll in Gaza continues to climb, and the UN says the territory is on the brink of famine, There are loud calls, including from Israel's staunchest friends, for an immediate ceasefire, for much more to be done to get desperately needed aid into Gaza. In the past few days, for the first time, Israel has opened the Erez crossing in northern Israel into Gaza. It has opened the Ashdod port, and it also says it will accelerate the capacity through Jordan. Will that be enough? We're joined by Cindy McCain, who is the Executive Director of the World Food Programme. Welcome to BBC News.
Thank you.
Could you please first describe to us how bad is the situation in Gaza when it comes to hunger?
As the UN said, and as what I have said also, famine is imminent in the north. And this is something that if we wait much longer, we're going to go over the edge and not be able to recover from it. That's why it is so important that we be able to get food at scale in. We at WP are grateful that there's consideration to open the Erez border point and Ashdod port. We're hoping to see that happen very soon. All of those things and more, along with the airdrops, along with everything else that's going on, will help us get food in at scale. But it can't stop. It can no longer be a dribble of 7 or 8 trucks a day or 7 or 8 trucks a week. It has to be multitudes of trucks and quickly.
There have been calls right up to the top of the United Nations that while welcoming these new moves, saying that all of the crossings should be open, and if not, that it will still be difficult to get the amounts of aid in that are needed. Is that also your view?
That is absolutely our view. We would like every gate open. We need to get food in and get it in at scale, as I said. We can no longer wait to be considered, or wait to see if our drivers are cleared, or wait to see if they're, if the checkpoint's actually going to be open. We need to get in now. Children are dying. As we speak, they are dying of hunger. That's why it is so important that we do what we do best, and that is take large amounts of food in and feed those who are desperately hungry.
As you know, those who are delivering the aid also feel at risk in the wake of the killing of 7 aid workers with World Central Kitchen. Some aid agencies suspended their operations. Do you feel it is still safe for your WFP staff to operate, and are they still doing so?
Well, this is dangerous work, no matter how you look at it. But we at WFP are not going to halt or suspend any of our operations. We continue to do the best we can to get aid in. Again, these new openings and these new ports, et cetera, if we do get them to scale and get them operational, will be of great help. But we should have done it a while ago. This is something that has allowed the northern part of Gaza to simply die. And so for those of us at the UN that work on humanitarian principles and believe in delivering food and aid in a principled fashion, we feel very strongly about how much needs to go in and why we should be in there. And once again, aid workers should be safe. It was unconscionable that WCK was hit. It's a terrible situation. But let me say, there's been more aid workers than just those that have been killed, and we're sorry for all of them. But we have to keep going. We have to.
You remember that in the early months of this war, you criticized what you described as the insane bureaucracy, the number of security controls that Israel has imposed that, in effect, hold up the delivery of aid. Has that improved? Has the process become smoother?
The process has become smoother, yes. It's still not 100%, but let me say it is much better than what it was. A lot of the confusion, because we only had one opening at that time, and it was Rafah. So it wasn't just WFP trying to get in, it was hundreds of other agencies trying to get aid in, and there was no real controls on it. Now I can say that with regard to UN aid agencies, we go through Kerem Shalom, we try to make it up the fence road. Again, that's why we need other openings further north, so we can get our trucks in up through there and get directly to northern Gaza.
Cindy McCain, one of the world's biggest aid agencies, struggling to deliver aid to people who desperately need it in Gaza, welcoming those new steps by Israel, but like so many saying, much more needs to be done. Well, that's how it looks now on this day, which marks the 6-month mark of the Israel-Gaza war. We'll continue our special coverage here and across the region, but now I'll hand you back to London.
That was Lise Doucette. Well, our international editor, Jeremy Bowen, has also been covering the war since the very start and has returned to one of the kibbutzes in Israel that was hardest hit by the Hamas attacks.
Six months after the attacks, it's a bit like going back into a time machine because all the damage is still here. And the reason for that is that in this kibbutz near Oz, 1 in 4 of the population of more than 400 people was either killed or taken into Gaza, which is about a mile away, the border, as hostages. Looking round at the damage here and hearing the stories too of what happened. Hamas came in about 6:30 in the morning and they were here till early afternoon, undisturbed, going from house to house until the army arrived. Well, the war's still going on. That's outgoing fire from an Israeli battery near here into Gaza. This is now one of the typical houses in this kibbutz. Abandoned, burnt out, 6 months on, it still smells of burning. On the sofa over there, there's some neatly folded laundry, perhaps done the evening before, October the 7th. Going around this place, you can understand why Israelis believe very strongly that they're fighting a just war in Gaza. Of course, their allies feel the same. Their quarrel is with the methods that Israel has been using that have cost so many innocent Palestinian lives. And as for the family who lived here in this house, they're dead.
There's also a long read by our international editor, Jeremy Bowen, on the BBC News website and app, so we do encourage you to read that as well.